Hi folks, and welcome to Tech with Troy. It's been a while since we did a quick picks video, so I'm going to try to rectify that by doing a pretty comprehensive list of recommended laptops, from the cheapest I would recommend up to probably about the most expensive that we think most of our viewers would consider. Now, unlike previous videos where most of the laptops we've recommended have been on Walmart.com, we've actually found a pretty good mixture between Walmart and Amazon, so you'll find this a little bit more even-handed than in the past. As usual, I'll be providing the quick links to the laptops we discussed below, and also in the interest of fair disclosure, those quick links were generated through our memberships in the Amazon and Walmart affiliate programs, so we may receive some small compensation if you use those links. Now, for this list, we sort of upped our minimum criteria. We've always been looking for Celeron processors or faster, and we're going to stick with that. We've also always insisted on 4 gigs of RAM or more, and we're going to insist on that. But we're going to add an additional restriction. In the past, we have recommended some laptops that had only 32 gig of storage. These are usually eMMC drives. We're still going to allow eMMC drives, but we're going to ask for at least 64 gig of storage. And the reason is, even though it is possible to upgrade Windows with 32 gig of storage, it's a pain. And if you've got anything on your storage drive, you're going to run into problems. So just to make sure that these things can be upgraded fairly easy, just the normal upgrades that Microsoft Windows pushes out, that is, we're going to ask for at least 64 gig of storage. Now, let's start off our list with the Lenovo 130S. Those of you that have watched my videos before know that I'm a fan of the Lenovo laptops. Even on these lower-end, sort of cheaper types of Lenovo laptops, you still get a fairly decent keyboard. Now, the things that we like here, they do have the Celeron N4000 processor, which is a fairly good chip. It has 4 gig of RAM, it has 64 gig of eMMC storage. That's not quite as fast as an SSD storage, but it's pretty decent. And for the price of $187.99, it's actually a good laptop. Couple of downsides that we have to talk about, though. First of all, this is an 11.6-inch laptop, which means it's probably better suited for a kid, or if you're an adult, if you really value sort of portability over weight and so forth. But if you're an older adult, such as myself, you might find this a little bit harder to see, too. The other thing, and we'll mention this, up to a certain point, all these laptops are going to have not the highest resolution. They're not going to have the full HD, as it's sometimes referred to. So this is a slightly lower resolution. Let's see, it'll tell us in the specs down here, I believe. It'll be 1366 by 768. And we'll see as we get up in the list, we're going to have laptops with higher resolution. Now, to be honest, on an 11.6-inch screen, you can't really tell. And in some sense, one of the reasons I like the Lenovo machines is, to be quite honest, if I'm working on an 11-inch or a 12-inch or even a 14-inch laptop, lower resolution translates into you get a little bit larger icon size on the screen too. So that I also appreciate that. Now, one thing to note, they do mention down here there's a newer version of this item. Don't get that newer version. The AMC A6 processor, which the newer version has, is, I think, not as good as the Celeron processor. It's an older processor from AMD, and even though we've talked about the fact that some of their newer processors are really, really good, I wouldn't get an A6 processor. I would go with a Celeron N4000. Now, moving up a little bit in price points, but sort of the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of format. Here we have a 15.6-inch laptop. Again, it more or less has the same insides. It has that same Celeron N4000, 4 gig of DDR4 RAM, and 64 gig of eMMC storage. Now, this is from Acer, and I do like their keyboards too. This is also going to be 1366 by 768 resolution, but the difference is that it is going to seem a little bit of a, I won't say coarse resolution, but you'll notice the difference between this and a full HD resolution on a 15.6-inch monitor. Now, having said that, you know, if you're an adult, you're not going to have any trouble seeing the 15.6-inch monitor. So if you were looking for the most bare-bone computer, the one that would do what you need for school and for you know, personal typing and stuff like that. If I was an adult, I might lean towards the Aspire, whereas if I was a child or getting it for a child, I might lean towards that Lenovo 130S. Now, going past the $199 price point, up until recently, my next recommendation actually would have been another laptop on Walmart. They have a, I guess I'll call it sort of like a store brand Motile. They had a 14-inch Ryzen 3. Now, that's one of the new AMD processors. Up until a couple of days ago, this thing was selling for $229. One of the things that I wish Walmart would reconsider is how quick they are to change prices, and I think it's a double-edged sword, right? They're being very responsive in terms of if there's high demand, they do increase the price, and if there's low demand, they drop the price. But that means that it's very difficult to sort of count on being able to get a particular price. So I might consider this, and I'll talk about why I say might in just a second, if it were at the normal $229 price that we've seen it at. But at $279, as we'll see in just a second, there's a couple of other laptops that I'd probably recommend first. Now, in addition to the Ryzen 3 processor, this Motile laptop comes with 4 gig of RAM, 128 gig of SSD. And one of the other machines that we've seen on Walmart is the sister product to this, which comes with a Ryzen 5, has much better graphics than the Ryzen 3, but it also has twice as much RAM and twice as much SSD. Now, this has also been selling at a discounted price before. However, before I'd recommend either the Ryzen 3 Motile 14 or the Ryzen 5 Motile 14, there's one odd aspect of these laptops I want to talk about. They do come with an SSD, so let's first note that that's better than the eMMC that we see on both the Acer Aspire 1 and the Lenovo 130S that we talked about before. And that's one of the reasons for the increased price. So they come with an SSD. Actually, they come with an SSD, and then they come with another slot for a separate second SSD that'll take up to the fastest NVMe SSDs. And that's nice. We love upgradability. But the downside of both of these machines is there's only one DIMM slot for RAM. So, can you upgrade the RAM on this? You certainly can. You could probably, I know you can get up to an 8 gig stick. You might be able to put a 16 gig stick into either the Ryzen 3 or the Ryzen 5. But the downside of that is that these AMD Ryzen chips basically have really good graphics built in. But to use that really good graphics to its full potential, you need, for reasons I won't go into, you need 2 sticks of RAM. You can't get 2 sticks of RAM in these two Motile machines. So even though the storage is very upgradable, the RAM is somewhat constrained in terms of you can't make use of 2 sticks or what's called dual channel RAM on these machines. So I like them. I would definitely consider getting another one. I've got the Ryzen 5, did not pay this price for it. But if you were going to get it to take advantage of the graphics, which is one of the strengths, you'd have to realize that it's going to be hobbled, if you will, a little bit by the fact that you can only have one RAM chip. So to be honest, let's go back a second. If I was really tracking out where I would go, and I wanted to spend a little bit more money than the $199 I was going to spend on the Acer Aspire 1, my next choice would actually be this guy right here. On Amazon, they've got a 14-inch HP machine, and HP machines are fine. I don't care as much for their keyboards, but other people swear by them, so it's a matter of choice. This has the same Vega 3 that's in that Motile we just talked about. It has 4 gig of RAM, like in that Motile, and it has 128 gig of storage, just like in that Motile. The difference is that this machine does come with 2 DIMM slots, and you can upgrade to dual channel RAM without any problem, and you can also upgrade the SSD. So at $244.99 with the AMD Vega 3, Ryzen 3 that is, processor which has Vega 3 memory, or Vega 3 graphics, this is a good buy. This is a decent machine. You'll get good performance out of it. And I would put this, if you're trying to compare this with an Intel chip, my gut feeling is that up until like the 8th generation i3s, this Ryzen 3 was probably, in my consideration, a little bit better than the 8th generation i3. Now, having said that, if you want to go a little bit better, The new 10th generation Core i3s really up their game in terms of graphics. So if you're willing to spend a little bit more, $279, there's actually an HP version of pretty much the same laptop that we just saw back over on Walmart. It once again starts with 4 gig of RAM and 128 gig of storage. You can upgrade both of those. But with this Core i3 10th generation chip in it, it's going to have actually better graphics than the Ryzen 3 that we just talked about. So if you're looking to play some light gaming or something, this would probably be acceptable. I would recommend maybe a little bit more horsepower, particularly graphics power, if you wanted to do some serious gaming. But again, we're not really talking about gaming for most of you, and most of us are looking at productivity machines. Now, one other sort of contender in this price range, the $250 to $300 price range, if you will, would be this guy right here. Back on Walmart, Asus has a VivoBook 15.6 inch. Now this would give you the biggest display, so notice that this was 14 inch, this was 14 inch, this was 14 inch, and this was 14 inch. So if you really do want sort of a full-size laptop display, which most of us consider to be around 15.6 inches, I like this Asus series because you'll see that the bezel around the screen is pretty darn slim. So yeah, it's a 15.6 inch screen. It's actually in a chassis that's not a heck of a lot bigger than the 14-inch chassis that all these other machines we've been talking about come in. Notice how sort of relatively thick the bezel on the HP machine is. It goes with a Ryzen 3 3200, which is the newest generation. It has 4 gig of RAM. It has 128 gig of SSD. You can upgrade both. It also comes with a Windows 10 Home and S mode. Several of these machines we've talked about have S mode. We've talked about this in other videos on our channel. You can upgrade that to non-S mode, which allows you to run any software you want. So that's not really a constraint. So if you're looking for a larger laptop, and in particular, one of the things I will mention for those of you that use this for particular purposes, all of the obviously 11.6, but all the 14-inch laptops that we've talked about, if you go back and look at their keyboard in the display, you'll notice that it's a standard keyboard, but this guy adds, even though it's a small one, a dedicated numbers keypad. And I believe, yep, this Acer back here more or less did the same. That's even sort of more slim, if you will. So if you like having the dedicated number keyboard, if you like having a little bit bigger screen, I would definitely go with this VivoBook for $295. Now, at this point, if you want to up your game more, that is, everything we've been talking about is either the Intel i3 or the Ryzen 3. And if you want an i5 or an i7, there's lots of choices out there. Quite a few of you that have watched videos before know that I'm a big fan of the Lenovo S340. It comes with a i5 8th generation chip. We've seen this machine selling for $379, $389 at different times on Walmart. So I don't know that I would, I wouldn't be real happy to get it at $419. But that's not a bad price for something with 8 gig of memory, 128 gig SSD, and a Core i5 processor. It does, because it is a 15.6 inch laptop, it does still have that separate numeric keypad. We've got a review of this machine in our other videos, and one of the things we mentioned there is that it's, and you can sort of see it here, I'll zoom in just to remind folks, but one of the weird things is that the numeric keypad is tall and skinny, if you will, compared to the normal keys, which I sort of like because I don't use it that much. When I do use it, when I do need it, it's nice to have it, but I'd rather sort of spin the space on the normal keyboard. But it's definitely different. But I do like, I've got one of these, and I like this laptop. Now, finally, at the sort of top end of what I think most of our viewers might actually consider, if you wanted to move up to an i7, Walmart right now has an i7, again, 8th generation, but those are good chips. An 8th generation i7, 8 gig of RAM, 512 gig, really fast SSD, and a 14-inch laptop. It's the Acer Aspire 5. The 10th generation i5s and i7s are coming out. The graphics, again, are probably going to be much quicker than the 8th generations. To be honest, though, the CPU is about the same as far as what I've heard. I think that, again, unless you're doing gaming, in which case you need a separate, discrete graphics card, this is a great chip, this is a great price, and Acers are good computers. So it's funny that one of the cheapest laptops we talked about, the Acer Aspire 1 back here, and this one, the Acer Aspire 5, obviously from the name they're related, but they look a heck of a lot alike. I imagine there's a lot of similarities to their chassis, but this one is full-bore i7, half a terabyte of storage, whereas the other one was a Celeron with 64 gig of eMMC, slightly slower than an SSD. So, hope you've enjoyed these. Like we said, we will put all of the links to these machines both on Amazon and Walmart. If you've liked the video, we'd appreciate if you'd hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Take care.